Hey guys, MrPokke here. Back to back immediately right after recording Silver Wolf. We are now going to be talking about the revival of DOT Kafka, right? So the same preface I'm going to be saying for all of the early stage reviews. For all of the rework units, kindly check out to this video over here to see exactly what are the changes in greater details, the multipliers, the items, everything, right? So I will not waste our time. I'll just jump straight into the impact of exactly what Kafka's changes do with regards to the combat performance as well as the different endgame content, right? So in summary, Kafka is going to be potentially a bridge for DOT to once again become relevant, or at least more relevant, in version 3. I wouldn't say that the Kafka rework has made the current DOT team comp, that is going to be Kafka, Black Swan, Robin, and Huan Huan, as the tier 0 apex, one of the best team comps in the entire version 3. No, it is more so that with this Kafka rework, we can then open up the path towards additional vertical DOT investments, and that is going to be coming from 3.5 in terms of high excellence, right? So the main point of this video is more of like an update for DOT as a whole, what to expect for DOT with the T's high excellence in 3.5 as well as a brand new 2-piece DOT set, right? So for Kafka's character kit, DOT is now triggered against adjacent targets as well at a 50% multiplier. Your ultimate can now trigger DOT for every single DOT without a trace, as well as giving you this additional follow-up attack stack, which you can then use for the rest of your attacks for the rest of your allies, right? And about the follow-up stack, you can stack this stack up to 2 times, and it works on all attacks instead of just your basic, and you actually refund 1 stack at the end of Kafka's turn, or if you were to cast Kafka's ultimate, and this can be activated from anyone's basic, anyone's skills, anyone's ultimate, as long as they damage an enemy, then this is going to be working. We also get a 100% attack buff for any ally above 75% EHR, and the E1 gives 30% DOT for any attack, and E2 gives you your DOT damage increase by 33%, right? Now we can talk about the impact, and the main focus of Kafka's rework is that her follow-up is going to be a lot more frequent in triggering, as well as the flexibility, since it is no longer being bound by your basic attacks. Adjacent DOT procs are also very nice, especially in pure fiction, while the attack buff seems to be targeted at other DOT allies who want to stack on higher EHR in the first place. Kafka herself, she should always be hitting 75% EHR just for the trace, so EHR main stat is almost non-negotiable. I do want to say this follow-up attack, if you are going to be using an AoE skill or an AoE ultimate, you can't exactly control where this follow-up attack lands, so that is going to be a little bit of an RNG factor over there, right? And then for the energy rotation, it remains relatively unchanged, but using an energy regeneration rope for faster ultimate, it directly helps you to trigger even more DOT, since Kafka's base multiplier as a DOT is rather weak compared to Black Swan, and her multipliers didn't really change by that much. It's more so the frequency of her proccing other DOTs, right? And then the 100% attack buff, only 75% EHR, this should not be underrated, because this is quite literally the equivalent of more than 2 attack percentage main sets, which means that every single DOT pairing with Kafka, they should be aiming to hit the EHR bare minimum of 75%, which can be done running an EHR chest in the first place. Now, I do also want a special mention, yes, Robin with EHR chest, EHR main stats, and some EHR stuff to hit that 75% EHR can have more attack than Robin with an attack percentage, as you guys can see from this little table over here, right? 5.1k attack with EHR versus 4.4k without EHR. So that is the impact of a 100% attack buff, which is honestly really, really high. Now, for the island changes in E1 and E2, I'll test them again a little bit more in the live server, but it is a minor improvement, with the E1 having a little bit more quality of life proc on any attack just like a follow-up, and the E2 having a very, very slight increase in the DOT damage multiplier. Now, compared to Silver Wolf's kit as well as the E2 changes, this is a lot less significant, but that being said, if Kafka is going to be the pillar of the DOT society, vertical investments for Kafka can be considered, but only after getting better DOT teammates that is going to be high excellence in version 3.5, right? And now jumping into the build, I would say that between the DOT build with Prisoner as well as a battery build with the Eagle or 4-piece speed, I opted for the Prisoner 4-piece with a brand new 2-piece that's a Revelry, but with an energy regeneration rope just for a little bit more damage to reduce the likelihood of the enemies at 1%. Since Kafka procs a follow-up attack so frequently, the damage running the 4-piece DOT and the 2-piece Revelry, it can definitely add up over time, right? So this is gonna be the build if you still want to consider like full-on debuffer or full-on DOT. For a full-on debuffer, it is almost the exact same as Silver Wolf because it just turns out that they're both nihility and they can both use tutorial. So if you really want to, you can go for the 200 effective speed, run with tutorial, run with maybe a defense out like Cypher's S1, exact same main stat as speed, EHR, HP, or if you want damage, you can go for the lightning damage or attack damage, as well as energy regeneration. And then for a subset, it's going to be pretty much just EHR and attack percentage, right? So there's a debuffer build. Then for the DOT build, it is going to be your 4-piece DOT, your Prisoner, your 2-piece Rivalry, your Light Cone. I would say Cypher's S1 is going to be more impactful than Kafka's S1, but you do want to try to hit that 170 speed, right? And for the main stats, pretty much exactly the same, no change. And then for the subsets, you can go for the EHR as well as the attack. Now, I personally ran all of my tests in Kafka with the DOT build on energy regeneration rope using Kafka's S1. Now, Cypher's S1, it is going to be the definitively better upgrade due to the 24% defense down stacking, assuming that you can hit 170 speed. With Kafka, this is roughly 13 speed subsets across 5 different relics using speed boots and no other speed buffers. So if you do have a E2 Robin, a Run May if you want, you can definitely reduce the requirements to hit a full on 24% defense reduction, right? Kafka's personal damage in this entire build, she does take a more of a back seat because she relies on getting the DOT procs as often as possible with the ultimate and the follow-up attacks and the skills, but you don't really want to sacrifice Kafka's damage by a lot because defense break from your prisoners and her different multipliers, because it's literally damage over time, it would add up as time progresses. So I would say, in my opinion, I think the DOT build with energy regeneration is still going to be very, very fine. That being said, I do believe that in the future, when Heistlin comes out, and if Heistlin's damage is going to be drastically higher than Kafka or even Black Swan, then Kafka running a full-on battery build might see more usage. It's a little bit reminiscent of like if you want to run like a sub-DPS Serval, or if you want to go on like a full 4-piece Ego battery Serval, if you want to run her with D Herta, right? Sometimes in pure fiction, you could still go for the DPS build, right? You want to run DPS Serval, DPS Herta is fine, but sometimes if the damage really focuses on Herta dealing as much damage as possible and giving Herta a lot of stacks, then going for the 4-piece Ego all-in battery for either Serval or Baby Herta, it is gonna be a viable option, just like in this scenario, Kafka as well as Hyacinth. So that's pretty much it, and now we can talk about the performance of Kafka, first of which being who is the slot tree right now for DOT teams, right? So first things first, since Kafka, Black Sword, and Huan Huan, they are basically your type, who should be the slot tree between Jiao Qiu, Ran Mei, Tribi, or even Babin, right? So I did test the following teams against MOC 12 Sarok, which happens to have fire, lightning, and wind weakness, which means that Jiao Qiu is actually not too bad of a matchup over here, since he was previously never included in the old DOT teams between Robin as well as Run Mate, right? So this entire showcase, it was done using full E0 S1. Kafka was on Cypher's signature light cone while not hitting the 170 speed. The first thing to note is that for both Jiao Qiu and Robin, you can see in Sarok stack, you had the ability to hit the 50 Arcana stacks at full E0. And this, I'm not sure if this was possible last time. Definitely not something I see too common, but you can in fact hit this 50 Arcana stacks from the frequency of DOT from Jiao Qiu, or simply from the additional action value that Robin is going to be generating for your entire team, right? Out of the 4 different slot trees, I would say that Tribi is not necessarily the worst, but definitely the most uncomfortable to play, because her additional damage does not proc on DOT period, and the Duns, it was insufficient to cover Robin's action very advanced, especially in this stage where the enemies hit you very frequently, so Robin's ultimate had essentially no downtime, right? And last of all, Tribi definitely doesn't gain any benefits from the attack bar from Kafka, so that is gonna be that. Ranmei was gonna be better than Tribi due to the break efficiency, damage buff, as well as additional time spent during the break, but keep in mind, this entire Ranmei run, it was done using an E6 Ranmei, because I'm so sorry chat, I want to speed run all of the other stages, so I just E6 my Ranmei, right? But even though if Ranmei is still good with DOT, I do feel that Jiao Qiu and Robin, they are going to be the closest contenders, being the number 1 slot 3, with Robin being the definitive slot as the current rank 1. Because you can see from the result, Robin's team is the one that actually almost got us the 1 cycle clear with we just got a little bit more energy to carve out the Kafka ultimate. But to be fair, this Memory of Chaos 12 does have a lot of energy for Robin to maintain her ultimate duration. And if Robin does not gain enough energy to maintain 100% ultimate uptime, whether was it from hits, from your Huan Huans, then I would say that Robin's performance will definitely fall a little bit more, right? And in the future, when Heistlin comes out, it would ultimately depend on Heistlin to see if her multipliers are strong enough to replace Robin and run a full 3-man DOT, since on paper, they can synergize with one another altogether, right? All of them running EHR main stats, all of them getting the Arcana stacks, your DOT procs, and you are no longer as reliant on your enemy hits and external factors or even Huan energy ultimate regeneration to let you have a 100% uptime, at least for Robin's ultimate. So if we are going to be getting high ceilings, I could foresee a world where we could be running high ceilings, Black Swan, and Kafka, 3 of them having the perfect synergy with one another, and then for the final stop being sustained, Huan giving the entire team energy as well as the tap buff is going to be very, very appreciated. I would want to say specifically for Huo, right? The sustain issue is going to be a little bit uncomfortable because there are some times where I legit just got wiped by Huan, and I think this has been an issue that's been going on for a while now, and her personal availability in terms of making your team alive is gonna be a little bit worse, especially when I compare all of the recent abundance units we have been seeing, right? So that is pretty much it for the different slot tree performances. And now the biggest question of them all: is DOT back? So I basically ran the Robin variant on all 3 different endgame on MOC 12, Pure Vision, as well as Apoc Shadows. And here are some of the points that I've noticed across all my time playing with the rework Kafka, right? So Kafka's follow-up attack and ultimate, you should try to save this after Black Swan's ultimate, but sometimes you are forced into a situation where you want to out immediately in order to save the wasted energy, or you want to waste the energy but hold off the ultimate for the Black Swan Arcana stack. There really isn't a very clear-cut answer, since Black Swan's ultimate would allow for a much higher damage, and it is quite hard to ensure that Kafka gets another ultimate unless you get hit all from other energy sources, right? So for this specific scenario, whether you out with Kafka immediately or wait for Black Swan's Arcana, the Black Swan ultimate, trial and error would be needed to see the best case scenario. Now, the best case scenario aside from this is that you somehow manage to let your Black Swan outspeed Kafka in the first place. But this can be quite difficult, especially if you want to run your Black Swan on either the Jiaoqiu Signature Lycon, which is the best in slot, or her own Signature Lycon, because in this case, Black Swan doesn't have any other additional speed from a Lycon itself. Whereas for Kafka, you can run with Cypher S1, or you can run with Kafka's own Signature Lycon, which means that there are a lot more requirements for Black Swan to actually outspeed Kafka. And realistically speaking, unless you hit like, I don't know, 10 speed for like almost every single relic, it is almost not feasible for Black Swan to consistently lap Kafka, right? Because if you can lap Kafka, then if Kafka always goes after Black Swan, it is going to be a lot more likely for Black Swan to trigger the ultimate, right? So that is going to be that with regards to this segment. For the energy increment with the additional follow-up attacks, the enemy hits, as well as Huan, especially for this MOC 12, it feels very, very impactful, especially with the energy regeneration on Kafka. And I feel that this is what would be Kafka's future main purpose going forward, to spam her ultimate attacks, because by spamming her ultimate attacks, it builds up your follow-up attack stacks, which can then be triggered from the rest of the teams attacking the enemy. So having the ultimate uptime, which directly translates into more DOT procs, would be, in my opinion, the #1 priority, right? For Pure Fiction in DOT is actually a lot more comfortable because the frequent pops of the main target, which is going to be adjacent target from Kafka's skill, it's going to be very, very nice, allowing for a full auto 40k. Now, granted that this specific Pure Fiction, it does have the DOT buff, so in the future, with high ceilings coming out, I would say that maybe DOT can be even stronger in Pure Fiction, even without DOT buff, right? Which does bring us to the final endgame, and unfortunately, for this Apoc Shadows I tested, first of which, Flame Weaver is just absolutely horrible to run DOT with, right? It is really, really bad because you really guys can't kill the clones, right? He has no weaknesses for wind, no weaknesses for fire. It is just super, super bad. And I would say that despite Flame Weaver having a DOT buff, I literally could not clear this on 3300, right? At least full team E0 on full auto, it was not happening, right? I also tried to change between Hyacinth and Huan. Turns out Hyacinth is literally doing worse than Huan. So once again, going to show that maybe Hyacinth is not truly omnipotent for every single possible team, right? Because for this specific Flame Weaver and Airbox Shadows, the goal is to kill as many of the clones as possible, but because of the way that DOT itself functions, and they always wait for the damage to take place, when the Flame Weaver takes its action, it is basically not possible to kill the clones as far as possible, which leads to the fact that you can't really gain those extra turn mechanics from this specific Apoc Shadows, right? So I would say that for this Apoc Shadows, it is more so aimed towards Finon than Kafka's rework, or at least until High Salience release, because High Salience is going to be a physical DOT, most likely, right? So that's where I can see when that happens in the future, Black Swan will most likely be getting replaced, running in Kafka with High Salience, and then this should be at least on element and perform DOT in a much better efficiency, right? So with that, we have come to the conclusion. So between all three endgame modes, I would say that DOT with Kafka's update, it is definitely taking a massive step towards the right direction after not having updates in DOT for almost one entire year ever since Black Swan. Considering their three respective endgame performances, I wouldn't say they suddenly shot all the way up to a tier 0 team or in the same caliber as a version 3 units, but they are definitely a lot closer in line with the version 2-ish going to version 3 team comps, at least until High Salience comes out, right? I would say the purpose of buffing Kafka, it is not really to bring your old DOT back into meta, but it is more so to improve the upcoming DOT unit in version 3 that is going to be High Salience. Think of it more as like a indirect way of buffing High Salience instead of buffing Kafka. So if players, you guys want to play DOT, or if you're DOT mains, but you have decided, okay, I want to stick with the old Kafka, Black Swan, Robin, right? I give up on vertical investing on DOT. I have been using the exact same team for 1 year. I want to use this exact same team even after Kafka's buffs. I would say that the performance is not going to be that great, right? So the definitive answer to truly bring DOT back into meta, in my opinion, it is still going to be dependent on High Salience. So for DOT mains, you know you have been playing DOT, you want to continue playing DOT, you are going to be pulling for High Salience, then this Kafka buff is going to bring you a much bigger return, because with the addition of Kafka's additional follow-up triggers, plus combined with High Salience, personal damage multipliers, or whatever it's going to be in the future, I would say that's when it will be the true version, right? The true version 3 DOT, which in my opinion could potentially rival our very strong contending version 3 teams as of what we have right now, right? So that is pretty much it for Kafka's early access review. Let me know what you guys say in the comments below. And we still have 2 more early access reviews to go, and after we still have the fake collab banners. Absolute cinema, absolute overworking. Word of the day is gonna be DOT is back soon. Join Twitch, join YouTube, join Discord, join the holy over. Oh my god, I'm so tired, man. See you guys next time, right? Okay, bye bye.